down there. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nārayaṇam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 15, Description of the Kingdom of God. So we are reading about Vaikuṇṭha. So here the demigods, they are approaching Lord Brahmaji, and suddenly at that point of time they have seen there is a huge, ever increasing darkness that is all across the universe, and they are asking Brahmaji, praising Brahmaji, asking what is the reason of this darkness. So we come to text 8. Yasya vacha praja sarva gavastanyeva yantrita haranti balima yastam tasmai mukhyayate namaha. Translation.
All the living entities within the universe are conducted by the Vedic directions, as a bull is directed by the rope attached to its nose. No one can violate the rules laid down in the Vedic literatures. To the chief person who has contributed the Vedas, we offer our respect. Purport: the Vedic literatures are the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot violate the injunctions given in the Vedic literatures any more than one can violate the state laws. Any living creature who wants real benefit in life must act according to the direction of the Vedic literature. The conditioned souls who have come to this material world for material sense gratification are regulated by the injunctions of the Vedic literature. Sense gratification is just like salt. One cannot take too much or too little, but one must take some salt in order to make one's foodstuff palatable. Those conditioned souls who have come to this material world should utilize their senses according to the direction of the Vedic literature. Otherwise, they will be put into a more miserable condition of life. No human being or demigod can enact laws like those of the Vedic literature because the Vedic regulations are prescribed by the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
So here, after glorifying that how the Vedas are manifested through Brahmaji, they are glorifying the Vedic literature. Yasya vacha praja sarva. All the living entities within the universe are conducted by the Vedic directions. Just like the bull is directed by the rope attached to its nose. So the mighty bull can be taken in a different direction through the rope which goes through its nose. Similarly, the living entity should be following the Vedic directions. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the Vedic literatures are the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedaischa Sarvair. Right. So, all the Vedas, they come from the Supreme Lord, and therefore they are called as Apaurusheya. Apaurusheya means they are of the divine origin. Many times people have a very wrong attempt of dating the Vedas. They say that Rig Veda appeared 2000 years ago, Yajur Veda came little later than that, and a kind of thing. And what they do is they base their study on the study of the Indologist who had a very different intentions when they were studying Sanskrit and the Vedas, calling them as mythology. But Vedas are eternal. They are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they are called as Apaurusheya. The injunctions of the Vedas, they are also mandatory, as Prabhupada says here, just like the state laws. Right. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita very wholeheartedly recommend this. Tasmat Shastra Pramanam Te Karya Akarya Vyavasthitau. Tasmat Shastra Pramanam. What is the Pramana? Shastra is the Pramana. So we as a devotee, we follow two Pramana. It should be sanctioned by the Shastra and it should be sanctioned by the state law. When both the ticks are done, Shastra tick and state law is ticked, then we follow that activity. Certain times there are certain activities which are sanctioned by Shastra but not by the state law. Right. And certain times there are some activities which are sanctioned by state law but not by the Shastra, just like meat eating, gambling, or intoxication. This is sanctioned by the state law, but it is not sanctioned by the Shastra. We abstain. There are certain activities which are sanctioned by the Shastra but not by the state law. Then we also, so we have to follow, like one example is property rights, right? According to Shastra, the entire property is given to the elder son, and the elder son will distribute according to his choice to the younger sons, younger brothers, and sisters, so on and so forth. That's how we see that the kingdom is passed from father to the elder son, right? But now state law is different. So we follow when the tick is on both Shastra and the state law. And this is true for everything, including sense gratification. So sense gratification as such, Prabhupada writes very beautifully here, it's like salt. So what is the salt? The salt will give taste to the meal, but too much of a salt can spoil the meal. And too little of a salt can make the meal very, very tasteless, right? So Prabhupada says, therefore, the sense gratification is that like the salt. One cannot take too much or too little. And therefore, in order to advance properly, one has to have a right balance, right? Vedas, they guide how to engage the senses. Otherwise, if we do not follow the Vedas, what will happen is we will put in a more miserable condition of the life. So just like, and therefore the Vedas are called as a manual for the human form of life, manual of God. Like any machine comes up and then we come up with a manual. We know that, oh, this car I have purchased, instead of petrol, this is a diesel car. Instead of diesel, if I put petrol, the car will not work. Similarly, the human form of life will work with certain rules and regulations which are given, prescribed in the Vedas. Text 9. Satvam vidastvam svam bhumans tamasalupta karmanam adabhadradaya drashtya apannan narhasikshitum. Translation?
Translation: The demigods prayed to Brahma, "Please look upon us mercifully, for we have fallen into a miserable condition because of the darkness, all our work has been suspended. Purport: because of complete darkness throughout the universe, the regular activities and engagements of all the different planets were suspended. In the north and south poles of this planet, there are sometimes no divisions of day and night. Similarly, when the sunlight does not approach the different planets within the universe, there is no distinction between day and night. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So the demigods, they began to pray to Brahmaji, please look upon us mercifully. Because of this ever-expanding darkness, we are unable to perform our regular activities, which are very important for the maintenance of the universe. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, just like on the north and the south pole planets, on this planet, north and the south pole, there is no distinction between the day and the night. You may look for that video also, where exactly day meets the night. There is a very beautiful video. Maybe I'll share later. So there what happens is, within 100 meters, there is a full day, and after 100 meters, there is a full night. Okay, and many people go for that sightseeing and everything. So there is no distinction. So similarly, Prabhupada says here, if the sunlight, because of sudden darkness in the universe, it was not reaching to the different planetary systems. And because of that, there was no distinction between day and night, and it was all night. Because there was no sunlight, it was all through night. Demigods were feeling the pain, and they were unable to know why, what is the cause of this darkness. And therefore they are saying, my dear Brahmaji, please look upon us mercifully and save us from this very miserable condition of darkness. Text 10. Esha devariter garbha ojah kashyapyamarpitam dishastir mirayan sarva vardhate agnir vaidhasi. Translation.
As fuel
As a fuel
overloads the fire,
overloads a fire, so the embryo created by the semen of Kashyapa in the womb of Diti has caused complete darkness throughout the universe. Purport: the darkness throughout the universe is explained herewith as being caused by the embryo created in the womb of Diti by the semen of Kashyapa. Hare Krishna.
So demigods, they could ascertain certain cause, but they were not very sure of this cause. And they said that this darkness is there because of the pregnancy of the Diti. The powerful semen of Kashyapa, when has entered the womb of the Diti, and we could ascertain this cause. And please let us know what is the reason of this cause. What is the reason exactly why it is happening? Because they have never seen that some pregnancy causing such a havoc all across. And they are the demigods. They know Jyotisha extremely well, right? So the Brihaspati is their guru and all the planetary systems are only the demigods. So they knew that the cause is somewhere with the Diti's pregnancy, but they were unable to know why so and what is going to happen. Text 11. Maitreya uvacha saprahasya mahabhavo bhagavan shabda gocharaha pratyachashtatma bhurdevan prinan ruchiraya gira. Translation.
Sri Maitreya said, thus Lord Brahma, who is understood by transcendental vibration, tried to satisfy the demigods, being pleased with their words of prayer. Purport: Brahma could understand the misdeeds of Diti, and therefore he smiled at the whole situation. He replied to demigods present there in words they could understand.
So now Brahma, saprahasya. Here Brahma is smiling. Prahasya, mahabhaho. O mighty armed Vidura. Brahma is smiling here. Maitreya Uvacha, this is. Bhagavan Shabda Gochara. Beautiful words. Bhagavan, here this is used for Brahmaji. Shabda Gochara. Shabda Gochara means one who is understood by the transcendental sound vibration. And very, very true, this is for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Shabda Gochara. Maitreya Muni said, Lord Brahma, who is understood, who is Shabda Gochara, tried to satisfy the demigods, being pleased with their words of the prayers. Right. So Brahmaji was pleased with their prayerful attitude, and Brahmaji. So Brahma could understand misdeeds of Diti. So this is very important. Why? What is important? is that whatever activities we do, there are many, many witnesses, many witnesses. Sometimes people think that I can let go the state law, but there are laws far superior to the state law, and everything is counted. Good is also counted, no doubt about it. What is good being done is also counted. But so Brahmaji here could understand the misdeeds of Diti, and therefore he smiled at the whole situation. Just one lady and her misdeed, and what the universe has to suffer. Right. And more the one is in a powerful position. She is the wife of a powerful Prajapati Kashyapa. The implications will be far beyond, the far reaching implications are there. And now he began to reply the demigods so that they could understand what's coming and why this darkness all about. So from text 12 to 25, we enter the second section where there is beautiful description of Vaikuṇṭha. And along with the description of Vaikuṇṭha, the incident that happened, which is the cause of this entire narration, is going to be described. But while describing this, Brahmaji could have simply said, oh, these two Vaikuṇṭha Vasis, Dwarapal, Jaya Vijaya, they are falling. No, but a devotee of the Lord will take great pleasure in describing activities of the Lord, pastimes of the Lord, and abode of the Supreme Lord. So here, Brahmaji is now giving description of Vaikuṇṭha. Now, mind you, this is Brahmovacha. Brahmaji, who is the highest perfected being within this universe, is describing Vaikuṇṭha. Right? Brahmovacha Manasame Sutayushmat Purvaja Sanakadaya Cherurvihasaya Lokan Lokeshu Vigataspruha. Translation.
Lord Brahma said, my four sons, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat-kumāra, who were born from my mind, are your predecessors. Sometimes they travel throughout the material and spiritual skies without any definite desire. Purport. When we speak of desire, we refer to desire for material sense gratification. Saintly persons like Sanaka, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat-kumāra have no material desire, but sometimes they travel all over the universe out of their own accord to preach devotional service.
So Brahmaji smiled because the cause of this is also his own sons. And therefore he said, Manasate, my own sons, who are my Manasa Putras, Jasatush Kumar, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumar, who are your predecessors, your Agraja, they were traveling throughout the universe, wandering throughout the universe without any reason. Vigataspruha. So Vigataspruha means without any desire. This word comes in Bhagavad Gita, Vitaraga Bhayas Krodha. Okay, so there, Vigataspruha, without any desires. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, generally when we say desire, the desire is for the sense gratification. I want Putram Dehi, Pautram Dehi, Dhanam Dehi. This is the desire of the people. But the great saintly personalities, they have only one desire. And what is that desire? Desire to preach devotional service. And for this desire, they are traveling throughout the universe on their own accord. The classical example of this is Narada Muni, and another classical example of this is Srila Prabhupada, right? Who is also known as Jet Age Narada Muni. Traveling. Why they are traveling? They don't have to acquire anything material, but they want to preach the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So similarly, these four personalities were traveling, and while traveling, suddenly one day, text 13, Ta ekada bhagavato vaikunthasya amalatmanah yuyair vaikuntha nilayam sarvaloka namaskritam. Translation.
After thus traveling all over the universes, they also entered into spiritual sky, for they were freed from all material contamination. In the spiritual sky, there are spiritual planets known as Vaikuṇṭhas, which are the residents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pure devotees, and are worshipped by the residents of all material planets. All the material planets. Purport. The material world is full of cares, and anxieties. In any one of the planets, beginning from the highest down to the lowest, Patala, every living creature must be full of cares and anxieties, because in the material planets one cannot live eternally. The living entities, however, are actually eternal. They want an eternal home, an eternal residence, but because of accepting a temporal abode in the material world, they are naturally full of anxiety. In the spiritual sky, the planets are called Vaikuṇṭha because the residents of these planets are free from all anxieties. For them, there is no question of birth, death, old age, and diseases, and therefore they are not anxious. On the other hand, the residents of the material planets are always afraid of birth, death, disease, and old age, and therefore they are full of anxieties. Thank you, Prabhu.
Ta ekada is once upon a time. Right. Ta ekada, once upon a time. Bhagavato, the Supreme Personality of Godheads, Vaikuṇṭha Amalatmana. So once upon a time, when they were wandering through all the universes, suddenly, by chance, by the will of the Lord, ekada, they crossed the boundaries of the material world and entered the spiritual sky. How they could enter the spiritual sky? Prabhupada writes here, for they were freed from all material contamination. Because they were free from the material contamination, they could enter the spiritual sky also. In the spiritual sky, there are planets known as Vaikuṇṭha, which is the residence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pure devotees, right? Who are worshipped, and these planets are worshipped by the residents of all the material planets. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says the material world is known as Kuntha. Like we say that Mati Kunthit Hona, so Kuntha means anxiety and cares and anxiety. So the entire material realm is considered as Kuntha. Right from downmost planet Rasatana up to Brahmalok, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka, Punaravartino Arjuna. These are the places of Kuntha. But there is a realm which is beyond this material world, which is the spiritual sky, where it is called as Vaikuṇṭha, without any cares and anxieties. Right. Living entity originally come from that place, and because they are eternal in nature, they are suffocated in the material world. Because in the material world, there is constant change. Right. It is Dukkhalayam, and another is it is Ashashvatam. There is a constant change is there in the material world. There is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. And these Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi are very, very foreign to the living entity, nature. Living entity is Sachidananda. He is Mamai Vancho Jiva Loki, Jiva Bhuta Sanātana. He is Sanātana. But this nature of the material world, there is incompatibility with the living entity. And therefore, the living entity is always in anxiety. And this anxiety is primarily reflected as Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So somehow these four Chatushkumar, they transcended and they entered Vaikuṇṭha. And now there is beautiful description of when they entered Vaikuṇṭha, what happened there and what they could see, right? Different things that they are going to see. And here, these are the pages of Bhagavatam. We have the glimpse of Vaikuṇṭha, what's happening in Vaikuṇṭha. Needless to say, Prabhupada will be stressing that far more later, is that spiritual sky is not vacant place. It is not that everybody becomes a light and there is only light and you just become a light particle. No, nothing. There is no light. Of course, there is light. But the point is that there is a place and there is a Chetana Chintamani Chegava. Okay, right. So that is the place which is full of consciousness, full of personalities, full of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and devotional service. So this is very important to know. Text 14. Vasanti yatra purusha sarve Vaikuṇṭha murtaya ye nimitta nimittena dharmena radhayan harin. Translation.
In the Vaikuṇṭha planets, all the residents are similar in form to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They all engage in devotional service to the Lord without desires for sense gratification. Purport. The residence and the form of living in Vaikuṇṭha are described in this verse. The residents are all like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan. In the Vaikuṇṭha planets, Krishna's plenary features are four-handed. Narayana is the predominating deity, and the residents of Vaikuṇṭha Loka are also four-handed, just contrary to our conception here in the material world. Nowhere in the material world do we find a human being with four hands. In Vaikuṇṭha Loka, there is no occupation but the service of the Lord. And this service is not rendered with a purpose. Although every service has a particular result, the devotees never aspire for the fulfillment of their own desires. Their desires are fulfilled by rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord.
Vasanti yatra Purusha. So here the Purusha, Vasanti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides there. Sarve Vaikuṇṭha Murtayah. So Sarve Vaikuṇṭha Murtayah there. Vaikuṇṭha Murtaya is the four-handed forms of the Supreme Lord. And there, the Vaikuṇṭha planets, the residents are all similar in forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So amongst the various liberations, this liberation is having the form similar to the Lord's form. And therefore, he reached a place where there was a Sarupya Mukti. Sarupya, Sarupya, same Rupa as the Lord and the residents. And there are some small minor changes, like there is no Srivatsa on the Viṣṇu Dutas, and there is no Kaustubha Mani. Vaijayantimala is slightly different. Otherwise, their form is as the Lord Vishnu's form only. Right. That's what we will see in Ajamil's pastime, also the form of this Viṣṇu Dutas. They were all engaged in the devotional service without desire for sense gratification. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the residents and the form of the living entities in Vaikuṇṭha, they are described in this verse. The residents had the Sarupya Mukti, the same form as the Supreme Lord, and there the Lord is Lord Nārāyaṇa, the four-handed form. The predominating deity is Lord Nārāyaṇa. And in Vaikuṇṭha Loka, there is no other occupation than devotional service. There is no 9-to-5 job. There is no boss or something like that. There is only one occupation is, devotional service. And that service is also rendered without a purpose. Without a purpose means it is ahaituki, apratihata, yayatma suprasidati. Savaipum samparo dharmo, yatho bhakti radhokshaje. Ahaituki, apratihata. So the devotional service they rendered is without any desire, right? Which is the... So what Prabhupada writes here, although every service has a particular result, but the devotees never aspire for the fulfillment of their own desires. It is not that I have the desire. We have to do a high-class devotional service. The service will have a result, but that result should not be fulfilling my some desire. Okay, this is called as ahaituki apratiha. Then what is the desire? The only desire is the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bas. That is the only desire. Just like there are so many ladies, they will go for Sandhya Bhog or Raj Bhog cooking, and they will do excellent cooking. And what is the result? Result is excellent, prasadam, bhoga is being prepared. But there is no desire that I want to enjoy whatever is I have cooked. Therefore, many times, devotees have this rule that whenever they cook for the Supreme Lord or whenever they cook in the temple, they will not taste whatever they have cooked. Otherwise, there is always the chance that, we may have some desire to taste and, something like that. So this is ahaituki apratihata devotional service. Text 15. Yatra chadhyah pumanaste bhagavan shabdagochara sattvam vishtabhya virajam svanam no mrudayan vrishah. Translation.
In the Vaikuṇṭha planets, all the residents are similar in form to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They all engage in devotional service to the Lord without desires for sense gratification. Purport. The residents and the form of living in Vaikuṇṭha are described in this verse. The residents are all like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan.
Prabhuji, next verse. Text 15.
Yes.
Nice.
In the Vaikuṇṭha planets is a supreme person of Godhead, who is the original person and who can be understood through the Vedic literature. He is full of the uncontaminated mode of goodness, with no place for passion or ignorance. He contributes religious progress for the devotees. Purport.
Yes. So purport we'll see tomorrow. We are just reaching the time. In the Vaikuṇṭha planets, the Supreme Lord, who is the Supreme Lord, is the original person and who can be understood through the Vedic literature. Same words, same lines are used here. Bhagavan, Shabda Gochara. So these are, of course, these are fitting to Lord Brahmaji, but these are more precisely and perfectly fitting the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavan, Shabda Gochara. Right. Sattvam Vishishta Virajam Swanam no Mrugayan Vrishah. And who is understood by the Vedic literatures. He is full of the uncontaminated mode of goodness, Vishuddha Sattva, with no place for passion and ignorance, Virajam. He contributes religious progress for the devotees. So this is the Supreme Lord who is residing in the Vaikuṇṭha planet. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.